So how are you managing to eliminate or reduce as best you can any of the ambiguity that maybe exists in your business? What I mean by that is I was speaking with a client just the other day around some of the questions that were coming through from the team around some clarification that they were asking for on how to handle certain situations, or what happens if or what happens when. And also a little bit of niggle that was starting to appear with people of expectations from the owner versus what was happening with the team. Now, that leads to a conversation about performance. Now, some can view that as being, it's a straightforward conversation. Others fear it because it's entering into what might be perceived as being conflict. But one of the things that I've found, and I know that clients are using quite well or to good effect, is when it comes to a conversation about performance, and there's two types of performance really in my simple head. One is a conversation around the numbers. So look, how are we doing against the numbers of the job? Now actually that becomes a more easy conversation to have, because if people are clear on what's expected of them from a numerical point of view, so the targets, if that makes some sense, then really just looking at, what's the target, what's the actual, becomes a relatively straightforward conversation around, look, you're either on target, ahead of target, or behind, and we make what's required for us to get back on track or to kind of keep doing as well as you're doing. That's a relatively straightforward conversation if people actually have targets and that you can track their actual performance. What becomes a little bit harder though is behaviours. It's much harder to confront non-performance through poor behaviours, or behaviours that you don't choose to kind of have long term in your business. So how do you then handle that? Well, one of the things that I've found quite useful is, rather than the conversation, so let's just say that the camera is the other person, let's just say that we're having a conversation about behaviours that aren't really expected in the business, then it becomes a bit of a me to you. We're eyeballing each other, and there's potential there for it to kind of appear as if there's conflict. Now, what I've found to be really helpful is, almost introduce a third party or a third thing. So when it comes to behaviours, again, bringing out the values document for the company that just says, okay, look, let's both now refer to the values and say, to what extent might that behaviour be contravening some of these values? Or there might be rules of the game. We always encourage people to talk about what are the rules of the game for the business, which are they're different to the values, but actually, what's the kind of the right way to be within, how do you handle things within this business? What's your expectation for how people turn up to meetings? What's your expectation for preparation for one-to-ones, and so on? Those kind of things would be rules of the game. But again, almost holding that as a document and saying, actually, look, what I'm seeing just now isn't really in tune with what we've put down as the rules of the game. Rather than it being, look, I want to discuss with you something, and then you have to get into the conversation. So job descriptions would be another one. Again, I've seen job descriptions done really badly, if I'm honest. They're kind of copy and pastes from something else and aren't really a true reflection of the job that's been asked to be done. But if you've got a good, tight job description that's been well thought through, then if there's something that's not happening with that person, again, it's just bring out the job description and say, look, how are we doing against these things? Yeah, you're doing well here, here, and here. Could do with maybe tightening up on X, Y, and Z areas. So again, it's just a third thing to take the sting out of the conversation, which might, others might perceive that as being quite a personal thing. Actually, it's not. It's just a discussion about performance in relation to what's already been pre-agreed. The assumption, of course, is that these people actually do have that clarity. And I know that's quite a big assumption because it doesn't often happen. But anyway, what's the key takeout for this? Have a third thing in there to really help those conversations, so that you can really put your arm around people, let them know how they're doing, but also correct any behaviours or actions that that aren't quite working. And then hopefully what happens from there is people are aware, and then they can make the necessary adjustments so that they can perform and continue to enjoy their job. There we go. Hope that's helpful. Until we next speak, good luck in business.